Welcome to The Explainer, where we take all that complex data and turn it into a story you can actually follow. So you see a stock shoot up, right? But what are the charts actually telling us about what's coming next? That's what we're digging into today. We're looking at the hidden clues in the chart for Quantum Computing Inc., or QBT. Think of us as financial detectives for the next few minutes. We're going to break down the technical story of QBT, signal by signal, using the exact same tools the pros use to figure out what's really going on. All right, first things first. Let's zoom out and get the big picture. What has QBT's journey looked like over the last 3 months? So if you look at this timeline, it's been a real roller coaster. The stock started around $19 back in July, then you see this massive spike, followed by a pullback. It ended up at $22.16 on October 6th. So clearly there's a lot of action here, a lot of volatility. And that's exactly what we're here to investigate. Okay, so this leads us to our first major clue. And for any technical analyst, this one is huge. It's the relationship between the price and the trading volume. And boom, here's a perfect example. Look at October 3rd. The price jumped by over 13%. And look at the volume. It absolutely exploded to over 118 million shares traded. Now that tells you something. That isn't just random market noise. That's a ton of investors jumping in with real conviction. All right, so we see the upward move, but a chart that just goes up can be misleading. Analysts need a way to confirm if the underlying trend is really as strong as it looks. And to do that, they have to smooth out all that daily noise. The main tool for this is something called a moving average. Seriously, the best way to think about it is like this. Imagine you're on a really bumpy road. A moving average smooths out all those little bumps so you can see the actual direction the road is heading. It just filters out all that distracting short-term volatility. Now, you've got a couple of flavors of these, simple and exponential. The main difference is that the exponential, or EMA, pays more attention to what's been happening lately. But honestly, the key thing to remember is that they both do the same job. They help analysts see the real trend behind all the day-to-day chaos. And check this out. This is where it gets really interesting for QBT. Its current price, that $22.16, is floating above all of its key moving averages. We're talking the 5-day, the 20-day, the 50-day, even the long-term 200-day. For a chart analyst, this is like a chorus of voices all singing the same tune. It's a classic bullish signal. Okay, so the big picture trend looks pretty strong, right? But now it's time to zoom in. We need to grab some more specialized tools from the analyst's toolkit to check on the stock's immediate health and momentum. First up, we've got the RSI, which stands for Relative Strength Index. Think of it like the tachometer on a car. It tells you how fast the engine is running. Is the stock running way too hot, what we call overbought? Or is it running too cold, oversold? Or is it kind of just cruising along? And for QUBT, the current RSI reading is 59.88. So, what does 59.88 actually mean? Well, the scale goes from 0 to 100. Anything over 70 is generally considered overbought, and anything under 30 is oversold. So at just under 60, QBT is, well, it's pretty much in neutral territory. This tells us there's still room for it to move in either direction without being considered extreme. Okay, so the RSI is neutral. Next tool, the MACD. That's MACD, and it's another momentum indicator. But this one is all about whether the current trend is picking up speed or starting to fade. Now, the key thing with the MACD is the relationship between its two lines. And for QUBT, we're seeing something important. The main MACD line is sitting above its signal line. To a technical trader, that's another clear bullish clue. So what this tool is telling us is that the recent upward move isn't running out of gas. In fact, it suggests that the bullish momentum is actually getting stronger. That's a really important piece of evidence for anyone on the buy side of the argument. Okay, one last tool for now. Let's talk about volatility. And for that, we use Bollinger Bands. Just picture them as a channel or a tunnel that the stock price moves within. They basically show you the floor and the ceiling the traders are keeping a close eye on. And right now, QAUBT is trading in the upper half of that channel, somewhere between the middle band and the upper band. That's a sign of strength. The upper band, around $24, is acting like a potential ceiling, or what traders call resistance. And that middle band, down near $19, is acting as a floor of support. All right, we've gathered all our evidence. We've looked at volume, trends, momentum, and volatility. So let's put all these clues together and see what kind of story they tell us about what could happen next. So, after all that digging, it really boils down to two critical price levels that every analyst is going to be watching. First, you've got that ceiling of resistance up around 2417. That's the upper Bollinger Band. Then you've got a floor of support down around 1921, which interestingly lines up perfectly with that 20-day moving average. So, where does that leave us? Well, basically with three potential scenarios. You've got the bullish case, which is all about that strong MACD momentum we saw, the idea that the trend continues upward. Then there's the neutral case, backed up by that middle-of-the-road RSI. That suggests the stock could just bounce around between that floor and ceiling for a bit. And finally, you have the bearish case. It points to all that recent volatility and says, hey, this thing could easily pull back and test that support level. So, what's the final verdict from our investigation? Honestly, it's that the evidence is pointing in a few different directions at once. You've got bullish signals, you've got neutral ones. Because of that, the big takeaway from the analysis is to be cautious. The chart is basically telling everyone to wait for a clearer signal before jumping into a new position. And that really leaves us with a fascinating final question, doesn't it? The data, the charts, they give us all the clues. But with signals pointing in different directions, how do you know which one to trust? And maybe that's the real skill, where the science of analysis meets the art of investing.